All right, everybody, welcome back to what will hopefully be the final section of our cybercrime course. And this is where we're going to talk about the future. What can we expect as kind of time goes on and trends continue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we've already reached the level where there is a disturbing amount of real world impact to cybercrime. I've talked a lot about that over the course of this entire course. And I wanted to point out one more seemingly fantastic, using the old school definition of the term, kind of attack that we've started seeing recently. And that is when, there was I believe it was a journalist who wrote some articles that upset some people. And the people who were upset found out that this journalist was an epileptic. And so they sent him kind of an anonymous message that when it was clicked, it opened up onto just kind of a video of very bright flashing lights in an effort to induce an epileptic attack in this person. So this was an actual physical assault and, attempting to hurt somebody physically using nothing more than an email or a web direct message application, right? So that's the kind of thing that we're probably going to see more of in the future. Cloud storage is going to have all kinds of issues from a law enforcement perspective, from a digital privacy perspective, from a malware perspective, right? When we do not own the physical hardware storing our data, what are the legal implications? What are the technological implications? But cloud storage, as that becomes more and more and more popular, that's going to become kind of an increasing point of contention, an increasing point of, hackers are going to utilize it more. Law enforcement is going to have legal issues investigating it, etc. Ransomware is going to become more and more popular, unfortunately, probably, just because it's relatively easy. It's relatively difficult to track either where the ransomware came from or where the money is sent to. And it's just becoming profitable. I mean, it's hugely profitable already. And if anything, it's just going to become more profitable in the future. Mobile device malware. So right now we have lots of viruses and ransomware, etc., for computers, laptops, desktops, Windows machines, Macintosh machines. But as mobile devices like cell phones become more and more and more popular, we're going to see more and more malware designed not for Windows machines, but for Android cell phones or iOS cell phones. And what those are going to be capable of, how quickly they're going to spread, is really anybody's guess. Health devices. We are becoming more digital with our healthcare, right? So everything from hospital machinery, like, MRI machines and heart monitors and stuff, those are going to be increasingly targeted either for ransomware attacks or data harvesting, or even to try to kill people by shutting off a machine they need to live at the perfectly wrong moment. But also internal, right? So our Fitbits, pacemakers, there's all kinds of devices that people are now using in and on their body that can be targets of bad actors. I have a friend who's a diabetic who has an implanted blood glucose monitor. And that could be utilized by bad actors in who knows what kind of ways, right? The Internet of Things is getting larger and larger and larger. And so many of the companies that design these Internet of Things devices aren't taking security into account nearly enough, right? Because nobody thinks, oh, what possible use would a hacker have to, hack into a light bulb, a smart light bulb? Well, I mean, there are numerous reasons, but if for nothing else, they could turn that into a node on a botnet or something, or turn your thermostat up very hot or very cold while they know you're on vacation, or, any one of a number of different things that bad actors could use these devices for. But the creators of these devices security is not a thought at all, or if it is, they put in kind of the bare minimum amount of effort in many cases. And then one of the really big scary things is aggregate data. Everything we do online is tracked and monitored and conglomerated. So every website you visit is able to kind of see that you're visiting, and then the next time you come back, they're going to track when you look at products and what products you look at and what's related, and they're going to share that information with other companies and other people. And while it may be difficult, that each individual little piece of data is kind of innocuous by itself, when you aggregate all this giant data together, you get a much more intimate picture of people's lives. Through getting a little bit of information here and a little bit of information there and a little bit of information there, we can really figure out or know tons and tons of personal, private details of people's lives. So aggregate data is going to be a huge issue kind of going forward into the future. Social media is also a hugely problematic issue. It has been for years. This is only going to get worse. As the number of social media companies continues to rise, as the number of interactions with social media increase, the percentage of people that spend time on social media increase, social media has become more and more and more important. We've already seen this in lots of instances. Probably the most obvious, the most famous instance was the 2016 presidential election. We know for a fact that foreign countries were manipulating social media in order to change the outcome of this election and get someone that they wanted elected president of the United States, and they were successful. We have numerous reports and lots of evidence that Russia in particular utilized social media with fake accounts or boosted accounts that were supportive of their goals in order to change the outcome of that 2016 election. And we know they're doing it in other places than the United States also. And we know other countries besides Russia are doing similar things. So they're influencing people's actions in the real world, in this case, voting in an election, through the use of social media and either, fake accounts or hacked accounts, or manipulating the algorithm of these social media companies to get more people to see posts they want more people to see. And all of this comes down to radicalization. Social media is a great tool for communication. It's wonderful. It has all kinds of benefits. But one of the downsides is that it's maybe the best tool ever invented to radicalize people to your not necessarily scientific, not necessarily accurate, not necessarily truthful point of view. Conspiracy theories have run rampant on the internet in general and on social media in particular, right? I mean, QAnon might be the most famous conspiracy theory out there at this point. There's already been numerous physical attacks in the real world based on the belief in this QAnon conspiracy theory. There was a shooting at a pizza parlor back in 2015, 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. The January 6th insurrection. All kinds of physical, people have died in mass shootings and crimes associated with that conspiracy theory. There's also the flat earth conspiracy theory that says that the earth isn't actually roughly spherical, it's flat, and NASA is lying, blah, blah, blah. The anti-vaccine movement, trying to say that vaccines aren't safe and healthy as we know them to be. This is resulting in people dying. I mean, measles was essentially eradicated from the United States and Canada, but thanks to the anti-vaccine movement pushed by these radical conspiracy theorists, measles has come roaring back. And now lots of people all over the country, lots of children are going to get that disease that can cause sterilization, can cause death. The anti-GMO movement, trying to make genetically modified foodstuffs especially look bad or unhealthy. Getting rid of GMOs or restricting GMOs decreases food yields, which increases, starvation and hunger, increases the use of pesticides that can be harmful or dangerous to people. And then, of course, false flag claims, right? Saying another kind of common conspiracy theory is such and such crime or such and such attack didn't really happen. The people involved are just actors. There's kind of a famous conspiracy theorist here in the United States, who I'm not going to name because I don't want to give them any more fame than they already have, tried to claim that the Sandy Hook school shooting was a false flag and nobody actually died. The pictures of the victims were just actors or AI generated pictures or whatever. And that, thankfully, in my humble opinion, that conspiracy theorist just recently got hit with a very large settlement by the loved ones and the survivors of that attack for defamation, because they were harassed and stalked by people who believed in this nutty conspiracy theory. So radicalization is a huge issue. People, the good information spreads on the internet, but so does bad information. And we have to be careful to watch out for this radicalization process that takes, a little bit of something and then kind of creates if you believe this little thing, we're a safe place. You can join us. You can, we'll support you. We'll believe you. And by the way, if you believe this little thing, you might also want to believe this other thing and this other thing and this other thing. And so it escalates and becomes more and more and more intense. And the in-group tries to make sure that the new recruit, so to speak, gets as little support and help and comfort from outside of that group as possible in order to further bring them into the in-group. Part of what we're going to have to look at when it comes to social media is Section 230. And this is a vastly misunderstood law. You can get people, there's tons of people on the internet, you can Google it right now, that will try to tell you Section 230 means the exact opposite of what it actually means. But Section 230 is just a part of a law from back in the 90s, just kind of a subset, dealing with whether internet providers and, everything from forums to websites to whatever, social media companies, whether they're producers or regulators of content. And so prior to Section 230, what the law essentially said was that if social media companies or websites in general, if they didn't do any sort of moderation, they could not be held legally liable for anything that was posted on their website. But if they did do any sort of moderation and said, hey, we don't allow that, we're going to delete it. Hey, you're not allowed to spread this horrible conspiracy theory or racism or whatever, we're going to kick you off the platform, whatever. If they did any sort of moderation like that, they could be held liable for anything posted on that website, on that forum, on that piece of social media. And what that situation encouraged was websites and social media to not do moderation, because that was safest legally. Because if they did any moderation, but they weren't 100% successful at removing illegal content or immoral content or whatever, they could be held liable for that content. So it was much easier to have 0% moderation than it was to have 100% successful moderation. So that's what a lot of websites chose. And we kind of quickly realized as a country that that's probably a bad idea. We want websites to moderate, even if they can't be 100% successful at removing illegal or negative comments or posts or whatever. So Section 230 says that, look, you can do moderation And even if you're not 100% successful, you still won't be held liable for the illegal posts or defamatory posts that appear on your website. So it allows websites to both do some moderation that doesn't have to be 100% successful, while still having the benefit of not being held liable for illegal posts that are made on their platform without their knowledge. And that kind of we're able to slip by their moderation efforts. But one of the things we have to worry about when it comes to radicalization, when it comes to conspiracy theories, when it comes to all these issues is the 99-1 rule. Okay? The 99-1 rule for social media basically says that 90% of the users of any given forum or social media or website just kind of lurk and read and participate, in a consuming fashion. 9% produce a little, and 1% produces the vast majority of all the content. So if that 1% is conspiracy theories and radicalization and racism and sexism and homophobia and anti-government conspiracy theories and all these things, it's not just reaching the 9% that are going to maybe respond and try to point out that it's not real, etc., etc. It's going to reach the 90% who are going to consume that and see that without any sort of pushback or questioning or pointing out that it's, this is horrible and not true or whatever. Now, what can we as a society or we as companies or we as a government do to try to prevent this increasing radicalization and conspiracy theories and election interference and all those things? Well, one of the things we can do is ban groups or profiles. There have been a lot of instances of this over the past few years. Platforms like YouTube have banned lots of accounts, even very popular accounts with lots and lots of followers and subscribers have been banned from places like YouTube and what used to be Twitter and all those other social media things, because deplatforming works. When you ban groups, when you ban organizations that are spreading lies and hate and all those things, this really can go a long way towards reducing the reach of that platform, that account, that person, that group. Another thing you can do is what's called a shadow ban. And a shadow ban basically says, our algorithm says based on your number of subscribers or followers or whatever, that we're going to show your posts to this many people who aren't your follower or your subscriber. But we're going to artificially reduce that. We're going to make it so you're not seen by the wide audience that you should be seen by based on this algorithm. We're going to artificially lower the number of people seeing your posts so that you're not making money. You're not spreading this message nearly as much as you kind of should be based on just the math. We need to have increased reporting, right? Social media accounts, social media companies need to make it easier for users to report posts that are harmful or illegal or straight up lies. And then when they do reach the level of illegal, the social media companies need to report then to the appropriate law enforcement agency. One of the things that has been attempted, but is probably not going to kind of meet legal muster, is counter hacking and counter malware. This is where private citizens or companies can use some kind of illegal method, whether it's a hacking method or a malware method or whatever, to kind of get what they want, right? So somebody hacks my server, well, I'm going to hack them back in order to figure out who they are and what they took and all those things. Unfortunately, this is almost definitely still illegal. Even if you're hacking somebody who hacked you first, or even if you're giving malware to somebody who gave you malware first, that's not legal. That's not kosher. That's, But lots of different companies and organizations are trying this. What's going to be very interesting to see is how the courts rule on whether law enforcement can do this. So there was one instance where law enforcement was able to find a child porn ring on the dark web, but the vast majority of their users remained anonymous. So what law enforcement did was, after they had taken control of this server that was used to trade child porn, they kept it running for a few days or a few weeks, but installed on it malware. And what this malware did was, every user who connected, and again, usually these connections are anonymous thanks to different, proxies and encryption and so on and so forth. Whenever users connected to the server that was now under the control of law enforcement in that period of time, unbeknownst to them, they also downloaded this piece of malware created by the FBI, which then got onto their machine, whether it was their cell phone or their desktop or laptop computer, kind of figured out where that machine was, what its IP address was, who owned it, etc., and sent a direct message back to the FBI with the identity of that device. So this was a way for them to kind of bypass the anonymity of encryption and proxies and all those things. That is a much, or at least a little bit of a grayer legal area, right? Can law enforcement use illegal kind of hacking techniques or malware creation techniques that would be illegal for anybody else? Can they use that to catch bad guys? If they do, are they, do they need a warrant? Do they need a court order? Do they need a special kind of warrant? What is the legal requirements for them to use that if it's not outright illegal in every case? And then, of course, there's the increased use of digital forensics. Law enforcement and companies for both civil investigations and criminal investigations are going to have to use digital forensics more and more and more and more, because increasingly the evidence that they're looking for of either crimes or corporate espionage or, policy violations for, a given company or whatever, that's increasingly going to rely on digital evidence. Text messages, browsing history, all that stuff is going to need to be tracked and investigated as part of any investigation, criminal, civil, etc. Now, what kind of policies might we see from governments, from organizations around the world? Well, regulation of security is one thing. Governments around the world should require the manufacturers of any digital device to have basic security precautions as part of the design of that device. It doesn't matter whether you're making a smart light bulb or, the computers in an automobile or a smart thermostat or a smart refrigerator. It doesn't matter. You need to have basic security, like encrypted communications, right? All kinds of other kind of simple security protections need to be required as a matter of law, not just suggestions, not just, consumers will choose to get secure ones, because the vast majority of consumers don't think about security any more than the manufacturers do. So we need to make sure that this is a required thing. The regulation of social media. How this is going to work, especially here in the United States, I have no idea. But it's probably going to at least be attempted. It might be more or less successful, I don't know. But the First Amendment to the Constitution, guaranteeing freedom of speech, is going to make it difficult to have real meaningful regulation of social media. But something needs to happen. Something needs to at least attempt to stem the tide of things like malware spreading and election interference and all those other negative effects of social media. We need to increase education for employees, for students in schools, for just every end user of any computer system. We need to increase education of security, of password privacy, of what to do or what not to do when you're online, how to spot phishing emails, etc., etc. We need to increase the amount of education we are giving to people of all ages, of all organizations, all levels of use for any kind of digital device. And then, of course, we're going to have to look at international trials of some kind, because cybercrime is so commonly international, or at least interjurisdictional. We need to figure out some way to make this easier. It might be international criminal courts. It might be increased extradition policies or agreements. There's all kinds of ways this can happen, but because cybercrime is only going to get more popular, and the number of instances of cross-border crime happening are only going to get higher and higher and higher, there needs to be some kind of method worked out to make the eventual investigation and prosecution of those crimes easier and cheaper and more effective. But the last thing I want to leave you with, the last lesson you should take from this course, is that it's not slowing down. There's more and more and more into the foreseeable future. Moore's law, in a nutshell, states that computers double in processing power every 2 years. Technically, it's about the number of transistors on a chip, but it's been kind of slowly morphed into processing power doubles every 2 years. And this is kind of proven to be true since Moore's law was first laid down in like the 50s or 60s. So computers are only going to get faster and faster and smaller and cheaper, and thus increasingly part of our everyday lives. You know, in 20 years, I'm probably going to look back on this video and think, oh my gosh, what a, he had no idea what was coming, because computers are now here and we use them this way and that way. So we are going to be more and more digitally dependent as time goes on. Computers are going to get smaller, they're going to get cheaper, they're going to get faster. So we're going to use them for more things. And that is going to have who knows what kind of impact on daily life, on crime, on privacy. It's all going to change, and it's going to change very quickly. But I don't know about you, I'm excited to see it, because it's going to bring lots of good things. It's going to bring bad things. It's going to bring crime. It's going to bring, invasions of privacy and all those things. But it's also going to bring so many cool things. It's going to bring so many benefits. It's going to have untold influence on healthcare and economics and entertainment. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited. Anyway, that is the end, not only of this section, but of this course. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Please send me a message telling me whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, whether you think I should change something, add something, delete something. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.